Welcome to the Funeral Funds Life Insurance Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Vandervate from Funeral Funds of America, and you can find us at funeralfunds.com. That's funeral, FUNDS.com. Whether you're interested in term life, whole life, annuities, disability, business continuation, or final expense life insurance funding, we have you covered. Our team of experienced professionals will guide you through the complexities of insurance products to help you make an informed decision. In this podcast, I'm going to be discussing when do you need burial insurance if you already have life insurance. In this podcast, I'm going to cover 6 topics to help you understand when do you need burial insurance if you already have life insurance. Let's rip right into number 1. So, if you don't have enough life insurance coverage to cover the cost of your burial, then burial insurance would be perfect in most cases. And let's look at an example. Let's say you had the most common life insurance when you're younger is like term life insurance. So let's say that you had a $250,000 term life insurance policy, but that policy was really dedicated to paying off your mortgage should you die unexpectedly and your spouse or partner is left without your income. So it could pay off the house and then potentially replace some of your income in your absence, because when you die, your employers don't keep sending checks, do they? No, not at all. So the the disadvantage of a term policy is that it lasts for a specific period of time, a specific term. So if you have a 10-year, 15-year, 20, 30-year policy, whatever it would be, at some point that's going to end. And, although in that $250,000, there might be enough coverage to pay for a burial in there. In most cases, you want the house paid off and then you want that extra money just to replace your income. Because I can tell you one thing, even $250,000, if all that went to is replacing your income, that doesn't last very long. If you make 100 grand a year, that only lasts 2.5 years. If you make 50 grand a year, that only lasts 5 years. And we know that money goes quicker when there's only one income earner in the family versus two. So that's not a lot of term life insurance, and it is going to end someday. So in that case, having some dedicated burial insurance may make sense. In most cases, it does make sense because the burial insurance is going to be a whole life policy. You will never outlive it. It will last until age 121 years old. The price will never go up. The coverage will never go down. It's permanent. And we really look at recommending permanent plans for permanent needs. Term life insurance policy, if you got a 10-year, 20-year plan, you're hoping to outlive that plan. You should celebrate the day that you outlive that plan because you didn't want to die to use the policy in the first place. It's just there just in case something falls out of the sky or somebody runs you down in a truck or something like that that you just didn't see coming, and your family's going to need that money. But if you never use it, that's ideal. But burial insurance, you are going to use it. No, nobody gets off this planet alive. Everybody dies. Everybody's going to need some insurance money or some funding to pay for their burial. So, point number 2 about do you need burial insurance if you already have life insurance? Well, if you don't want to use your life insurance benefit for final expenses, that would be a great reason to have a final expense policy too. Like I talked about in point number 1, you may have all of your existing term life insurance tied up and spoken for. And again, $250,000 is not a lot of insurance. Even $1 million, you might think $1 million, I'd be rich. Well, if you're making $100,000 a year, $1 million is going to replace 10 years worth of income, but it kind of really doesn't, because we know that inflation goes up. So the entire time that you're spending that $1 million down, $100,000 a year, inflation is eating away at that because things get more expensive over time. So let's say that you took that $1 million and you invested in it and you got a 5% return on interest. Interest rates have been low. That's probably pretty generous right now. But let's say you got a 5% return on that, or your surviving spouse or partner did. So out of $1 million, that would only pay out $50,000 a year without drawing down the $1 million balance ever. Well, if you were making $100,000 and your spouse or surviving partner was counting on that $100,000, now that income's been cut in half, and they're only going to get $50,000 if they don't want the $1 million to keep declining and getting less and less and less. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of people think that if they get $1 million life insurance settlement, they're millionaires. Where if you invest that money, you're only like $50,000 heirs, right? You're not. It's not a lot of money, and if the interest rate's 4%, it's only $40,000. So, yeah, in many cases, it makes sense just to get a separate permanent whole life plan just for your burial needs, and that way you never have to worry about depleting that money from the term policy. And if you outlive the term policy, you're in good shape. You've got a policy for that. So, a third point on when do you need burial insurance if you already have life insurance is when you have specific final wishes. So, you may want specific things done at your funeral. And it could be, religious things done. It could be ethnic things that need to be done. It could be just the way that your family's done it for generations. Grandpappy was buried that way, and everybody's going to be buried that way. And it's a little bit more expensive. You may want money paid out directly to a funeral home. So different policies have different requirements on who can and cannot be beneficiaries. So if you've got specific final wishes, a whole life permanent plan can often fill that void better than a term life insurance plan or universal life or something like that. It's really situational specific. And if you have any questions about that, we can certainly help you out with it. Our next point about when do you need burial insurance if you already have life insurance is when you want coverage for funeral expenses only. So if the only thing you want to cover is your funeral expenses, then stay away from a temporary policy. Go with the whole life insurance policy. Your prices will be locked in for life. Let's say you had a 20-year policy and you were blessed to live 20 years and you outlived that plan. Some plans say that you can renew them all the way up to age 95. And although technically that's true, man, you need to read the fine print on that sucker. I can tell you that. Because if it's a 20-year policy and you're 60 right now and it expires at age 80, it's going to recalculate at your age 80, 20 years older. It's not going to give you the rate that you were 60. No, the insurance companies don't do it that way. And in many cases, what your premium was when you bought the policy, it's now going to be 5, 6, 7, maybe even eightfold higher. So in most cases, the insurance companies, it's kind of punishing rates once you get out of the 20-year term. And don't blame that on the insurance companies. They don't want to insure you after 20 years because you're at a higher risk. But but think of it this way. If you were diagnosed with cancer at age 79 and 10 months, and you knew you were going to die in the next 1 or 2 years, you would pay those higher premiums, especially if you had a two, three, four, $500,000 policy, because it's just math, right? Even if it costs you say $5,000 a year, you'd spend $10,000 over the next 2 years, and if you had a $100,000 policy, it's going to pay out like $490. So yeah, it's just a math problem at that point. If you got any questions about that, reach out to us. It gets a little complicated if you're not kind of used to running some numbers on this insurance and everything. But yeah, it works out perfectly in that case. Our next point about when do you need burial insurance if you already have life insurance is when you want to avoid using savings. So as we get older, and most burial insurance is purchased by people between the age of 50 and 85, roughly. It can be less, it can be more. We can help in either situation. But most people don't want to rely on their savings. And here's the reason why. As we get older, stuff happens. And if we have any savings, often our savings are getting depleted as we get older. We're on a fixed income. Inflation is increasing the pricing of everything. You have more medical bills. I mean, it can only take one health problem to wipe out a family's savings. And then all that money that you thought was there for your burial is no longer there. And now, if you had just bought the burial insurance years in advance, your price would be locked in. You wouldn't have to worry about any of this. But now that that money's gone, you're out in the open market shopping for burial insurance, and you're older, and now you've got health issues that may disqualify you. And it's the wrong time to be looking for these insurances when you're sick, or you just had some medical event, or you just got out of the hospital or something like that. In most cases, really just depends on the insurance company. But what people really like about it is they just know that they've got a permanent plan in place, that no matter what happens, it's always going to be there, whether all their income and savings disappears or not. And our sixth and final point about when do you need burial insurance if you already have life insurance is when you want permanent peace of mind. I kind of just touched on that a little bit, didn't I? Yeah, so term life insurance doesn't work because it's for a specific period of time. Universal life, unless you fund it correctly, will end at specific ages. And if you're talking to an agent and they're pushing universal life on you, you need to look at real world examples, not like illustrations that assume a super high interest rate within the policy. Universal life numbers can kind of be twisted all over the place. You need to be looking at guaranteed, guaranteed parts of the policy, not just projections. So they're complicated. Be careful if a life insurance agent's pushing universal life at you. It's got its place, it's got its time, but when you're looking for something that doesn't have any loopholes in it, that's going to be permanent whole life insurance. That's going to give you the peace of mind knowing that no matter what happens, no matter whenever it happens, as long as you get the right policy, right? Because you do want to avoid a 2-year waiting period plan, don't you? Yes, you do. Yes, we never recommend a 2-year waiting period plan if you qualify for first day coverage. Because if you want permanent peace of mind, that means permanent on the long side. That also means permanent in the first 2 years. If you've got a plan with a 2-year waiting period, that's not permanent. I mean, it is after the 2 years. But in many cases, you see those plans on TV that say, yeah, for $9.90 something, you can get all this coverage. And then you find out for like $9.95, it's only $467 worth of coverage, based off your age or whatever it would be. And they're going to sock you with the 2-year waiting period. Is that permanent peace of mind? Knowing that they're can be 200% more expensive? Boy, that's not the peace of mind I think I want or our clients want. So, yeah, I hope that answers some questions about when do you need burial insurance if you already have life insurance. My name is Randy Vandervate, and I hope this podcast has been helpful to you. Funeral Funds of America can help you qualify for first day coverage or benefits at funeralfunds.com. That's funeral, FUNDS.com. And our phone number is 888-862-9456. We will be blessed to help you with this in the future. Until that day comes, stay safe, take care, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.